Trump Truth Commission, this is T+14, 2 weeks after the election date, so things are moving on. This is going to be kind of a quick one, but even though we're still 2 weeks afterward, the state's still not certified. Biden's projected with 306 electoral college win, but the votes are still being certified. There's still legal challenges. So, but there's still a lot of misinformation. So I keep a lot of facts on the website. The main thing is to have objective facts and vetted information so we can get through all the misinformation. Trump and his team is doing massive information all the time. So that's on the facts page or on the currents page or the video page, either way. But that's where I kind of keep updated information. So that's number one. Number two, Fox News, that term news is it's a misnomer, I guess. So many of these segments are really just opinion pieces, and I get that. I'm not criticizing people for having opinion hours, but they still can be responsible. So they can still have their conservative viewpoints and present real facts in real context, so you're not misleading the public. So what Sean Hannity does often is he uses nuggets of information, and then he spins it into a very scary yarn of a story that is frightening. Absolutely, I get frightened after every episode. So this is just trying to cut through some of that.
Give us an update on his legal standing this morning and your assessment as somebody who watches these cases that they might have the potential to change the outcome.
Nothing that we've seen so far for two reasons. One is none of these claims that there was fraud and therefore the election certification should be blocked or the canvassing should be stopped have succeeded. And secondly, even in the cases where in theory they might succeed, there simply aren't enough votes involved to change the outcome. No judge has yet found a single case of fraud. Now, one other notable thing about this, Rudy Giuliani has now filed in court to be a lawyer in that case, as the two other firms that had been involved in that case have dropped out.
So this was focusing on the common Fox News types of misinformation, but it was a good interview with some substantive points, but that they're misused, and so I'll just start off with some of that stuff.
All these ballots showed up apparently magically 2 weeks later. How did 2,600 ballots show up magically 2 weeks later, Ari?
Okay, here's a good nugget of information. 2,600 ballots did appear. It's false to say they magically appeared. They appeared. Basically, it was an oversight by I think it's Floyd County. So they didn't report those ballots. They were not counted. They didn't make it into the official tallies. Georgia conducted a separate audit. This is aside from the recount. Conducted an audit, and in that process is when they found those votes. So those were then entered into the system, and so that is an example of the process working. It's not perfect, there are problems, but they worked to make sure that they got them right.
Does that instill confidence in the American people?
Well, it would instill confidence in the American people if you gave them the full story. Tell them what I just told you, and then as part of an audit, and that it's a way to make sure that you're catching every single legally cast vote. So if you do that and use that message, then yes, it does instill confidence.
Can he pick up more? Are there other similarities in other counties? That's why it's important to pursue this. The margin is still a high margin, but it's important to pursue it.
So there could be problems in other counties across the country. So as far as I know, no other situation like that has been found, but that is part of the audit process. So, and that's what everyone wants to happen.
You've been there for the last 4 years. Have Democrats, the ones that were pushing the phony Russia hoax or the impeachment hoax, did they ever accept Donald Trump's election win in 2016? I don't recall that they did. I don't remember that they did.
We must accept this result and then look to the future.
Did they ever accept Donald Trump's election win in 2016?
Donald Trump is going to be our president. We owe him an open mind and the chance to lead.
I don't recall that they did. I don't remember that they did.
So I have instructed my team to follow the example that President Bush's team set 8 years ago and work as hard as we can to make sure that this is a successful transition for the president-elect.
Did they ever accept Donald Trump's election win in 2016?
I want to offer my congratulations to President-elect Donald Trump and wish him well for the American people.
I don't recall that they did. I don't remember that they did.
Of course, we're all very disappointed, not more than disappointed, hard to accept the results, but accept we do.
Well, that kind of speaks for itself. And thankfully, that's a bit of information that can help you. And then Representative Scalise, who's a representative in the U.S. Congress, wouldn't restate a misinformation like that. So good for us.
No, Sean, and in fact, if you saw the first few months, they denied the fact that he won the election.
Wrong again. That's what you guys do. You say something wrong and people repeat it. The great thing is that the Democrats did accept the election in 2016, and they did it rather quickly. They did challenge stuff, and I think they were going to push for a recount in Wisconsin. That is okay. That's the process. And no one is saying that Trump can't do the same thing in 2020. You just have to do it with facts and evidence. And they did accept the election virtually immediately.
There's still a lot of anger out there about the fact that there were widespread irregularities in a select number of states.
So yes, a few things. There is a lot of anger out there, partly because of all the misinformation that's put out there, but it's valid to be upset if there are some problems in the election system. However, the problems are just inherent in the system. There will always be problems, and they're being addressed. And overall, the integrity of the system worked. Department of Homeland Security has come out with statements saying it's the most secure election, no evidence of wide-scale voter fraud, and then every single case of any substance or merit that has gone through the courts to challenge voter fraud has either been discounted or thrown out or withdrawn. The only success I'm aware of is something about having I guess observers be closer than what they were before.
You know, they're boarding up windows, not letting poll watchers watch what's going on, even though the state laws say that. And then they wonder why people question the results or the integrity of the process.
So false. Boarding up windows, I really don't know what that was. They've talked about papering up the windows, but there are some security things maybe that were done, but it's nothing nefarious. There's no proof of anything nefarious. Observers were allowed in every single case. There's no case that I've seen or that's made it through court at all that observers were not allowed. So they challenged it in Pennsylvania. The court judge said, well, you guys are in there, right? Trump says, his lawyer says, well, they finally admitted that there was a non-zero number of people in there. So yes, there were Republican observers there. In Detroit, where they challenged it, they said that they weren't allowed to observe. And there was 200 plus observers in there, and many Republicans. So that's a common misstatement.
And why did they stop counting in a few of those states when Trump was way ahead, and then mysteriously the next morning, all of a sudden that lead's shrinking and shrinking until it goes away?
Okay, there is an objective reason. I'm just going to start in, I get to cheat and do some subjective stuff. So subjectively, are you guys freaking crazy? And it takes time to count votes. So just because the numbers are changing while people are counting doesn't mean things are wrong. For goodness sakes. Okay, done with subjective. Objectively, yes, in many states there were votes were being counted, and they were being counted in different ways. And some of the examples that they talk about, the in-person voting were being counted and tallied and reported first, and then the mail-in counts are being done later, and those were being reported second. In some of the more notable cases, like Pennsylvania, for example, Trump and his team were pushing away their voters away from doing mail-in votings and doing in-person. So the opposition typically had more mail-in votes in that situation, and that's why there was an initial lead, and then that gradually went away. Not nefarious, not false. It's just a matter of in-process counting, for goodness sakes.
Now, obviously with COVID, they could have made accommodations for social distancing so that Democrats and Republican partisan observers by law would be allowed to do it. They didn't do it in so many states.
A couple of minor corrections. They didn't do it. That's false. They did do it. In so many states, false. They did it in every state. That was easy.
The machine in Nevada that would verify whether or not a signature matched the signature on the file had settings on it, and it could be set up to 100%, which would rule out any little deviation in signature, or it could be set at 0%, which everything gets in. It was set at 40%. It was set so you had to really work hard to throw out a ballot because you could have a substantial deviation from the signature on file and they'd still count it. Why was it preset at 40%? Why not 50, 60, 70? Why wasn't it set at a level where you really did have a lot of confidence the only signatures would be the ones that matched, particularly since Nevada had never before mailed ballots in the general election to all its voters?
So I'm not going to really fact check that one because I don't know the details of the percentage, how they do the signature verification and what the appropriate percentage check is. However, This is why you are called Fox News. So even if it's a totally false name for your organization, still news is in the title. So when you do that, use information. Now, Ari Fleischer is a smart guy. Sean Hannity is a smart guy. They are not election experts. So what you do is you get an election expert to explain why there's a certain percentage and how they do the signature verification. I don't know the answer to that. I've read a lot about it, but you should get that expert in there, answer your question, and then either it's wrong or not, but at least you have some information. And that's what you should be doing as a news organization.
These are some of the legitimate questions that should be run to ground, and we should learn from it. So in the next election, both sides can say, yes, we have confidence.
And there were
ending on a positive note, Ari, that was well said. Yes, you should learn from it. Now's not you're not going to be able to fix any kind of system, but hey, move forward, identify things that are not working for well in this case, and identify the ones that are, and then you go ahead and fix those for the next election cycle. So I'm going to end on that note of positivity because that was a well said statement, Ari. So music.